So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get going, and we'll welcome Vince Cheng, who's been working in the early childhood field for over 20 years. He started his career as a substitute teacher for a preschool in Berkeley, and he's worked as an assistant teacher, a head teacher, director for Head Start programs, and a private nonprofit and for-profit childcare programs. Vince has been a manager of a childcare resource and referral program and an early Head Start home visiting program. He's the father of 3 children and a husband of an early care and education teacher, and I feel lucky to be able to call him a coworker at First Five with us here. So Vince, take it away. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll be happy to monitor the chat as we go along. If people put questions in the chat box, I'll let you know.
Great. Thank you, Beth. Hi, and good morning, everybody. I'm happy that you are all able to join us this morning for this training. Just so you know, when we were able to do this training in person, it was normally a 3-hour training, but we think 3 hours on a computer screen is a little bit too much. So we've cut it down to 2 hours, which means that we've had to cut down some of the information, and we'll probably be going quicker than normal. But I do want to make sure that we welcome any questions at any time. So either whichever you're comfortable with, please feel free to either unmute yourself and just ask your question right away, or if you want to just put your question in the chat, like Beth was saying, she will be monitoring the chat and she'll let me know if there's some questions there. Let's see, what else? We are going to do a few breakouts this morning. So we know that some people are not always able to be part of breakouts. So if you are not able to be in a breakout, I already saw that there's somebody who says that she's going to be listening along, but she's also working with clients at the same time. And so if you know how to rename your name on the screen, you would hover over your box with your name, and then you see the 3 dots on the upper right. So if you click on that, you can click rename. And if you do not want to be in a breakout room, then please just add an asterisk in front of your name, an asterisk in front of your first name. Oh, with 2 asterisks in front of your first name. And then that will allow Leah to know that you're not able to, or you would prefer not to go into a breakout room. Also, I believe another trainer has done this in the past, which I really like, which is if you prefer to speak in Spanish, then please put an SP in front of your first name. And then that will allow Leah to know that you prefer to speak in Spanish in your breakout room, and that she will, put you guys together. Okay. Let's see, is there anything else I should say? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I believe you all were sent maybe an email with this link to all the documents today. And if not, I think Leah can go ahead and add that to the chat.
Yes, it's
right now.
Chat already.
Okay, great. So these are links to all the documents. So I'll just kind of like quickly run through them. So the first one is going to be the PowerPoint presentation that we'll be running through today. The second one will be a form or a document that we won't necessarily open and go through in the training, but just something for you to review later on if you'd like to go deeper into. It's called factors to consider when you're thinking about the results of this questionnaire. Number 3 here is a blank completed ASQSE form. So you'll be learning about how to score these, but since we are not able to be in person, I wasn't sure if everybody would be able to have these forms in paper. I already completed the scoring for us so that we can have that available when we're going through the training. But if you want to go back and practice doing some scoring, then you can use the document number 3 there, but we'll likely be using the document 3.1. Document number 4 is introducing the ASQSE-2 to caregivers activity. So we will definitely be using that one. Tips for discussing screening results is another document just really for your reference. We will not be looking at that today, but we will definitely be talking about how we're going to be discussing some of these results with parents, or things to consider when you're discussing your results. The document number 6 is just an example of some learning activities that can go with the results of the questionnaire. So when you're sharing results, you can provide activities, additional activities that families can do at home. Document number 7 is the Lewis family study, and we will definitely be using that today. And then document number 8 is a Help Me Grow referral form. So I'll be talking about our Help Me Grow program, which is the program that I work in at Verse 5. And you can use that form to try to connect families if you feel that's appropriate to our Help Me Grow services, which you'll be learning about at the end of this training. Okay. All right, great. I see, are there any chats that I need to worry about here? Okay, so there's a couple of questions around, okay, so if you prefer not to go into a breakout room, then, or you're not able to go to a breakout room, because we are gonna do, I think, at least 3 breakouts today, then we ask you to rename your name on your box. So if you hover over your box with your name and you go to the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner, you can click rename. And then that would allow you to then rename yourself. And if you could put 2 asterisks to the left of your name, or at the beginning of your name, then that will allow us to know that you are not able to, or you prefer to not go into a breakout room. Okay, no question. All right, great. Okay, so today we're gonna be going through and learning a little bit about the ASQSE-2. So ASQ stands for Ages and Stages Questionnaire. SE is social emotional. And the 2 just means this is the second version. And the second version came out back in 2015. Okay. Okay, so this is something that I learned over the summer that I thought was really important. I think a lot of times as teachers or people who are trying to educate people, we really assume that when people show up that their brains are ready to learn. However, there are some basic needs that our brain needs to have in order for us to really get into that part of our brain where we are ready to learn new information and ready to be able to use our reasoning. And so I thought it's important that we're showing up today for us to try to get ourselves into our learning brains a little bit here. Okay, so this image here, you can see it starts with number 1, which is the basic needs of your brain, which your brain needs to feel physically and emotionally safe and calm and settled. So that is what they call our reptile brain area. Then number 2 is talking about our brain needing to feel related. So we need to feel connected, socially and emotionally connected to other people and in tune with the relationship. So our brain needs those feelings of being related. And then we're able to reach level 3, which we are able to do some reasoning and learning and being ready to learn. So I think sometimes I think of this when I dropped my child off to school in the morning, and I remember seeing that a lot of the teachers, the first thing they would do in the morning is actually do PE. So they would start to get the children moving around. And I understand this technique or reasoning now is really because it's a way for the children to kind of regulate their bodies, get calmed, get out some of that energy, and a way to relate with each other. So when they get into the classroom, the children will be, you know, ready to learn at that moment. So let's do some of these learning brain activities, okay? So we are going to go ahead and actually break you out into pairs so that you can get a little connected with one another. And the question we want you to answer in your pairs is, what do you hope to gain from the training today? Welcome back. Hope you all had an opportunity to sort of connect with one another and think a little bit about what you hope to gain from today's training. Again, if any of you want to share what you talked about or what you your answer to this question, please feel free to go ahead and chat it into the chat so we can see some of your responses. One person asked that they wanted to learn a little bit more or hear about the online ASQ3 or the SE2. And so I thank you for that question because I did want to remind folks that also at First 5, we do these trainings, but we're also able to follow up and provide additional technical assistance to any organizations or any individuals that may want to have more support to do these questionnaires with their clients and families and children. Depending on your organization, we have been able to also give away the questionnaire kits. So these are copyrighted questionnaires from an organization called Brooks. And we have purchased many of these kits in order to give them away to support organizations to do these questionnaires. With that, there is an online version. So we are also able to support organizations or people to use the online application. And we are able to do all of these generally for free and giving the online for free as well. So we have the license and we can set up the program for you and all that kind of stuff. So I welcome anybody after today, if you are interested in getting some additional support or wanting to start using these questionnaires with your families, please go ahead and you can email me and I'm very happy to follow up with you and we can schedule some additional time for some follow-up. Yeah, so they do have the online is available for the ASQ3. So that's the original ages and stages questionnaire, third version, which is about generally about the basic development of children, and then the SE2, which is the social emotional development or all about children's behavior.
And there's some comments in the chat of people, what they talked about. And many are wanting to, they don't have much knowledge about preschoolers and hope to gain so. And they need some units. That's also another thing. Someone is a recent college grad, a social work graduate and working in pediatric health. So the ASQ for both of you are awesome things and awesome ways to learn about child development. And Vince will talk more about that. Yes, and I will put Vince's email address in the chat box. So those of you that might be interested in having some more conversations about this. Does that seem right, Vince?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That's great. And then I think Brenda asked, she wants to learn more about emotional supports for her students. So yeah, that's wonderful. So you will learn about our Help Me Grow program, which at the end of the training today, which is our program is able to provide additional supports to people that work with young children and to families and parents with young children and help them get connected to many different resources, which includes mental wellness and emotional support programs. So you will learn about that, and then hopefully you'll be able to utilize our Help Me Grow program for that kind of information. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and move on. So today, this is our sort of our training objectives. We're going to review the benefits of screening. We'll describe the features. You'll learn a little bit about how to score it. And just that reminds me that the online version does all the scoring for you. And it also chooses the correct questionnaire for you. So I think some of those that have some background in the ages and stages question know that the correct questionnaire for each child is very, very specific to the age of the child. And so that means you have to like calculate their birthday and everything like that, which we'll talk about later. And you have to calculate it up to the number of days of their age. So it gets a little bit complicated with the math sometimes, but the online version does everything for you in that way. We'll talk about and describe and interpret the cutoff scores so you understand what the results means. We'll think a little bit about communication of the results to families. So we know that it can be a little bit of a sensitive topic. So just some reminders of things that probably people know already, but just things to remember, to be reminded of. And then we'll talk a little bit about like doing follow-up and referrals and connecting to our Help Me Grow program if you need that support for your families. Okay. So what are the ages? What are the ASQs and ASQSE-2? So it's parent or caregiver completed screening tool. So they were developed and meant for parents to complete them. It's a series of questionnaires, so they're good for children as young as 1 month of age and all the way up until they're either 5.5 years of age or 6 years of age for the social emotional tool. The tools accurately identify children at risk for developmental or social emotional delays. So the important part here is to know that it's either at risk. It's not diagnosing children for a delay, but it's letting us know that, maybe we need an expert to do a deeper evaluation of this child's development and let us know what's going on with this child and maybe possibly what kinds of services this child may qualify for. And then it's definitely a tool that we can use to educate educate adults, parents, caregivers about child development and guide their developmental promotion. So give them some sense of what to expect next as their child is getting older and growing up and learning. Okay. So those are the domains of the questionnaires. So I think those that joined us in the first training, which is a little over a month ago or a month and a half ago, the ASQ3 is sort of looking at all those 5 areas of development. And then today, the social emotional one is really all about social and emotional development. So all about children's behavior. Okay, so what is this? What is this questionnaire doing? So what we call it developmental screening. So what is screening? Okay. So here's sort of like a more formal definition here, which is, we're using a brief but accurate tool for all children that can help us identify children that are developing on schedule. So they're on target with their development as we expect them to as they get older. It may identify children who would benefit from some extra practice. So we're also looking for some children that maybe there's not like significant delays, but there are a little bit. And it just means that they need some more time to practice something and more opportunities to learn something. As we mentioned earlier, it does identify children at risk for some developmental delays and if we should refer them for a further assessment. So you can see there, it says it helps us answer the question, does the child need an in-depth assessment? So here are just some statistics just to let you, to hit home why doing developmental screening is important. So if you look there with developmental disabilities on the left or mental health problems or issues, that without screening tools for developmental disabilities, about 14 to 54% are identified. So that's a pretty wide range, right? But when we use our screening tools, it shows that we are finding 70 to 80% of children that have developmental disabilities that we need to pay attention to and think about supporting. With the mental health problems, you see there, it's only 20% identified. And then with screening tools, they say we're identifying almost up to 80 and 90% of children are being found. So what this is really trying to say is that without using these formal tools like this ASQ questionnaire, we're missing some children that could really benefit from this early identification, is what we call it. So identifying children at a young age that need some extra support. And when we give them that support in the early childhood world, we believe the earlier the better, right? So that we can hopefully provide support and minimize these potential issues or delays before the child enters kindergarten. Okay. So some other things to keep in mind, that the results of this screening will inform you that, so most of our children are going to be doing great. They're on schedule. That's also a good piece of information, right? For families to know. It's like, okay, great, my child is doing just fine. Some children will benefit from knowing that they just need some extra practice in some areas. And then there's a smaller percentage, but these are really important, will need a referral for an evaluation. Okay. Yes, Nadia, thank you for that comment. Yes, this screening helps for earlier intervention. Exactly. Okay, so there are some challenges. So we just want to talk a little bit about this. There are some challenges in assessing social emotional development because antisocial or challenging behavior is really just part of typical development, right? Babies cry because that's their way to communicate when they need something or they want something. Toddlers, as they're getting older, they're learning that they have power. They start to struggle when they need to share something, or they might not have the language yet. They might not have the words. So when they get angry, they might bite to communicate their anger or that they want something. And so that's kind of a normal, and these temper tantrums, right? Those are normal things that we expect toddlers, in that stage. Preschoolers, as they get older, they have their words, but they know that they have a lot of power with their words and with their behavior. And so they might whine for things, or they may be very demanding, and they may grab or push or hit, right? And we see that behavioral experimentation helps children actually learn about consequences. It helps them learn about the rules that we have in either a classroom or in our program or in our household, our family, or in society in general. And they practice and they experiment with their behavior to learn how they're expected to, what are those rules that they're expected to follow through with their behavior. Okay, and then this practice or experimentation really ultimately helps them develop their own self-regulation. So this is just part of normal behavior as children are growing up, right? So how do we know the difference between whether it's just typical challenging behavior, or if this is actually rising to a level where we want to be worried or concerned about it? So the developer of this tool tell us basically that looking at this to decide if it's a problem behavior are these factors right here. So there's two really crucial features. So frequency. So is this happening a lot? Is this happening more than we would expect it to happen? Okay, so that's one thing. And then also the intensity. So, tantrums can be pretty intense. And then really intense tantrums, if they're happening very frequently, then that could be an indication of some behavior problems, that something is going on. And then there's two ways also to think about it, which is externalizing. So this is the behavior that we easily see. Those are the tantrums. Those are the biting. That's the crying. They're externalizing their issues, and we can easily see that. But internalizing can also be a concern. And so if the child is overly quiet, we know that oftentimes the quiet children don't necessarily get a lot of attention because it just seems like they have quote unquote good behavior. So, but if they're overly internalizing themselves, then that could be something to be concerned about. Okay, so these are some of the things that help us determine if these, like the social and emotional behaviors might be outside of what we deem as being typical or normal or what we expect. Okay, and then additionally, we want to look at behavior through 3 really sort of important lenses. So the first one is, what is this child's developmental age or stage, right? So, you know, what should we expect for a baby? What we expect from a baby is going to be different than what we expect from a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, and then it's going to be different than what we expect from a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, okay? And then the context of a setting. So, for example, like if you're in a park, you expect children to be running around and making lots of noise. But when you're in the library, you're not necessarily expecting children to be doing the same thing as they would be doing in a park. So that's the setting. And then also number 3 is we want to make sure we are understanding and looking at the family, community, and their values and their expectations. And so it's really the culture of that child. So we have to look at the child's behavior through these 3 important lenses. Okay, so I've been talking a lot over the last few slides. So now what we like to do is we want to do a little brainstorm activity with the group. So the question to the group is, what factors influence a child's behavior? And I'm going to, so Leah, if you could put, let's see, maybe I can put it in. So we're going to use what is called this Padlet. This is a new tool that I'm experimenting today in this training with. Oh, here we go. I'll grab this link. So if you're able to click on the link, and it should take you to this page. And we want you to do is we want you to think a little bit here about what influences a child's behavior. So if you think about, and there's 4 categories we have for you today. So if you think about the time, the setting, or the environment, what comes to mind in that area of what could influence the child's behavior? Yep, there you go. I see people are starting to practice. If you're thinking developmentally, what do you think could influence a child's behavior developmentally? If you're thinking about health, or if you're thinking about family and culture, you know, think about what in that area can influence a child's behavior. So I see people are already starting to click on this. So yep, I welcome you to go ahead and click on the plus signs. If you want to add something new, you can either put a title in there, or you can actually just start typing your comment. So maybe culture I can think about here. I'll do an example, culture. And I can say like, write something in here. So in, oh, I don't see it type. In my family, children were expected to be quiet when adults were talking. And then I can put that information in there. And then if I hit, and then it gets posted. So please welcome you to go ahead and add things in the different areas. They also have the ability to heart. So if there's somebody's comment that you see here that resonates with you, or something that reminds you of when you were a child, or something that you think definitely you agree that influences a child's behavior, you can also heart different people's comments. So I'll go ahead and pause here. Is there any questions? I see some people are getting in there. Are there any questions about this activity we're going to do here? We'll just take a couple minutes to allow people to put their comments in. Is anybody having technical issues?
And if you're having technical issues, you can also put them in the chat. Put your responses in the chat. And people are saying some other great things: family dynamics and support systems, parents leaving and arriving, activity time, lunchtime. If a family or a child has enough to eat, that's so important. The tired, sick, and hungry questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how about 30 more seconds for folks to get any other comments up in the chat or on our Padlet here.
Someone said poor parenting skills. And sometimes it's more that, at least sometimes it's that a parent doesn't understand development and has expectations of their child that are not in line with the developmental stage of the child, it seems.
Can be expectations, yeah.
Yeah.
Oftentimes as adults, we put high expectations for children's behavior, and we expect them to sort of have the same understanding as we do about the correct way to behave.
Right.
Great. Okay, so thank you all for your comments. I see some wonderful things. One thing that's my eyes keep going to is underneath health. So thank you for putting in there about health conditions. For example, some children have different syndromes, or there's hearing issues, right? So it's like, if children have hearing issues, or if their vision is not so clear, that's definitely going to impact how they're going to be behaving. Maybe they can't hear or understand you. I see somebody wrote something about language, right? So if you're working with a child who doesn't speak the same language as you, then how can we expect them to sort of understand what we're saying first, and then be able to behave and know what our expectations of them are? Somebody put in born premature, right? So developmentally, they just might not be there yet because they came out early and they missed that time in the womb for that extra development to happen. Underneath time and settings, some people wrote circle time or nap time. So all these different transition times, or times where we expect children to sort of be together in a group. That's a circle time is a great example where we expect children to sort of be able to sit and listen. But depending on the age of the child, they may not just actually physically be able to do that, sitting for a long time and really focusing for a long time. So we have to have our sort of proper expectations of children at that age. Some children might be new, so the environment. So I think somebody wrote child feeling comfortable in the environment. Some people, we need to know that when children are in new environments, it's a little scary, right? So they are not going to be so warm to warm up so quickly. And some children warm up quicker, and some warm up slower. So we have to have that understanding.
Someone mentioned about culture, that children, in some cultures, children are not allowed to look into the eyes of adults. So if that's what we're expecting as a caregiver, and that doesn't happen, it could be that there's a cultural thing going on.
That's right, exactly. Great, thank you for that comment. So basically this exercise we wanted to do is we wanted to just remind everybody that behavior and what influences behavior can be very complex, and there can be multiple issues. So when we're thinking about a child's social and emotional development, there are many different things that we need to consider before we sort of make our assessment, or before we start to make our decisions on what the results of these questionnaires are telling us. All right, so just wanted to remind folks about that. So let's go ahead and get back into our PowerPoint. And I'll just, before we move forward, is there anybody and any other comments? Does anybody want to unmute and just kind of make a comment or an observation before we move forward?
Someone also mentioned parent separation. So
yeah, separations are a big one. As a teacher, I remember there was a lot of different techniques or things we would need to do and use in that. Because as teachers, oftentimes you're the first time this child is away from the parent. And of course, again, depending on the experience of the child and their temperament, some of those transitions are easier and some of them just take a little bit longer. So yeah, parent separations are definitely a challenge and can be. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward because there's still a lot to cover. So we're gonna go ahead and just launch into the features now of the social emotional questionnaire. Okay, so again, we mentioned it's a series meant for parents to complete questionnaires for children from 1 month of age up to 72 months of age. It's a tool that can support early identification of young children who are at risk. Remember, it's not diagnosing them for social emotional delays and identify what supports caregivers may need. And it's a tool to help us identify and respond potentially to parents' concerns so that children's behaviors don't become barriers to healthy relationships, okay? All right, so these are the sort of the 7 areas of behavior that the questionnaires look at. And so I'm wondering if we could get some volunteers to help us read, because it's nice to mix up voices in these trainings instead of just listening to my voice the whole time. So is anybody feel free to unmute yourself and help us read. So let's see if we can get 7 volunteers to each read one of the rows here. Okay, Brenda Gonzalez, would you go ahead, please? You want to go ahead and read self-regulation?
Sure. Ability or willingness to calm or settle down or adjust to physiological or environmental conditions or stimulation.
Okay. Can we get somebody to read compliance?
Compliance, ability or willingness to conform to the direction of others and follow rules.
Okay, great, thank you. Adaptive functioning, next person to volunteer.
Success in coping or ability to cope with physiological needs, i.e. sleeping, eating, etc.
Great, thank you. Autonomy, somebody next volunteer.
I can go ahead and read that. My name's Sharon. Autonomy.
Thank you.
Ability or willingness to self-initiate or respond without guidance, i.e. towards independence.
Great, thank you. Next volunteer, affect.
My name is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Susana and I'll read affect, ability or willingness to demonstrate her own feelings and empathy for others.
Okay. Social communication, next, the other person.
Okay, I can do it. Ability or willingness to interact with others by responding to or initiate verbal or non-verbal signals to indicate the interest or needs, etc.
Great, thank you. And then the last one, interaction with people.
My name is Marilyn.
Okay, Marilyn.
Okay, ability or willingness to respond to or initiate social responses to parents, etc.
Great, thank you everybody who volunteered. It's nice to mix it up a little bit sometimes. Okay, so those are the 7 areas of behavior that these questionnaires are asking about. Okay, so all these questionnaires are written at a 4th to 6th grade reading level. And then there's some open-ended questions at the end of the questionnaire. just like there were in the ASQ3 questionnaires. However, this one only has 3 of them. So there's one question that asks about any concerns with eating, sleeping, or toileting. And then this other question is any additional concerns or worries that they may have. And then what I really like about this questionnaire is the last question asks them, what do you enjoy most about your child? So it ends with something really positive. Because when we're thinking about children's behavior and parents answering these kinds of questions, it can seem kind of negative, right? It's so easy to often focus on the hard things that are going on with our children. So it's really nice to end with some strengths or something positive about their child. So that's what the questionnaire ends with. And it's a really important question for you all to make sure you read the answer to once you have parents complete these questionnaires. And it's a great place to start the conversations with parents when you're sharing the results of these questionnaires as well. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and pull out your questionnaire or just click on the link, I think it is 3.1 of the links there if you want to pull them out. So this is just introducing you quickly. So you can see that today we're going to be looking at the 6-month questionnaire. And you can see one of the red arrows points to the age range there. So you can see it's 3 months and 0 days through 8 months and 30 days. So this questionnaire is good for children within that age range only, okay? So you can see that's called the administration window. And it has a 6-month window there. And then it just has an arrow that says you can personalize these things if you want to or something like that. Then the next page you can see is it gives just sort of some directions to parents right here, right? So there's the first red arrow on the upper left. They're telling them how they can answer these questions. If we look down below, you can see that there are the 3 choices. So for example, right there, number 1, when upset, can your baby calm down within a half hour? So you can see it says the possible choices are often or always, sometimes, or rarely, or never. And then this is actually unique. This column here is check if this is a concern. So the social emotional one actually has a space for parents to say like, I'm also worried about this. And again, for you service providers, when you're working with your families and you're having them complete this, these boxes are going to be extra important for you to pay attention to, because if a parent's checking in saying, I'm concerned about this, we're going to want to follow up with them and to find out what's going on and what kind of supports we can provide to them. Okay. So I just talked a little bit about that. And so here's how they're scored. So the scoring is definitely different than the ASQ3. So the ASQ3 was very straightforward. It was every yes got a 10 points, every sometimes got 5, and every no got 0. But these questions on social emotional tool, some of these behaviors, the answer we want families to have is not always going to be the yes or happens often or always. So some of the behaviors are positive behaviors that we want to see, and some of them are the negative behaviors that we don't want to see. So it's a little bit trickier and it's opposite. But let's see. Let me go back. So let me go back here. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth. So let's go back to the question number 1 here. So you can see. And here is when upset, can your baby calm down within half an hour? Under the column often or always, next to that box, you see a Z. So Z stands for 0. Okay, and then next to sometimes box, you see a V. So V in Roman numerals is a 5. And then on rarely or never, you see an X. And an X in Roman numerals is equal to 10. Okay, so this is how it's going to be scored. Any questions about that? Okay, and I'll go back, and also you can see next to the circle there, if they want to check the circle, if this is a concern, then you see a V. So that's an extra 5 points that they could get. Another thing to note with the scoring of the social emotional tool that is opposite of the ASQ3 tool is that in the ASQ3, we want high scores. And high scores indicate that there are not going to be concerns with that child's development in that area. In the social emotional one, we want lower scores. So high scores in the social emotional tool could indicate that there are some challenges going on with this child's behavior and potentially some concerns as well with this child's behavior. Okay. So this is sort of important to understand. So I'm just going to pause to make sure there's no questions or anybody needs some clarification on this.
Do you mind repeating that real quick? Of the SE3 is the other one, and then SE2 is the higher points? Correct?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. So it's called ASQ3. So the ASQ3 is more about development. It's looking at different domains of development, like our fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, and their communication and language. And then the SE is about their behavior. So it's all about social emotional. The ASQ3, you want higher scores. Higher scores will indicate no concerns. In the SE2, you actually want low scores. So if we have high scores in the SE2, then it could indicate a potential concern with the child's behavior. Does that clarify for you?
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, good. Any other questions to clarify?
And if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so then here's an introduction to sort of the summary page. So what happens is once families have completed the questionnaires, then each of the pages, all those points get added up. And so you can see here, there's 3 pages of possible points. And so what this is telling you to do is like add those points up on each page, bring them over to this page, and then you know, put the total points on each page here, and then you add them up for the total score. Okay, and then the total score, you want to put the total score over here in this big box. So hopefully people can see that I'm moving the mouse over here. And then this is the cutoff. So every interval, so this is the 6-month interval, is going to have a different grid here, or this little line with the arrow on it. Okay, so depending on what the score is, the score could fall in, you know, anywhere along this line or this grid. So if it falls in this clear section, then what the tool is saying is that, okay, there's very little or no risk of behavior concerns or challenges with this child. If the score falls between this range, and on this one, it's between 30 and 45, they're in what is called the monitoring section or space. So that's sort of like the gray area. So there's kind of like, maybe there's concerns, maybe there's not. Let's think a little bit more about what else is going on with this child. And then if it falls in the dark area, if it's 45 points or higher, then there may be some kinds of concerns here with this child's behavior. And so like, let's think a little bit more deeply about what's going on with this child and see if the child may need additional supports. Okay, so that's a summary page. Again, I was mentioning the online system. So the online system, if it's done online, all of this is added up for you, and pretty much once it's completed, you can go straight to seeing the score. So you don't have to do any of the math or adding up. Okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on selecting the correct questionnaire here, but I think you've heard me talk many times. It's important now. It's like you would need to make sure you're calculating the child's age correctly up until the number of days. So it can get a little tricky. And so in this example here gives you some dates and that kind of stuff. And you also need to consider if the child was premature or more. So if they were premature by 3 or more weeks, then you need to sort of adjust. So they have to adjust their age because they missed out on that on some of that development in the womb by being born a little premature. And so we need to adjust for that as well. And you adjust for that only for children up to 24 months or 2 years of age. So when they're over 2 years of age, you no longer have to adjust for prematurity with this tool. So I say all that to say, I recommend folks use the calculator that's at the website of the agesandstages.com. So that's the website right there. And I think it's really on the home page or right there on the front. You scroll down and I think it's on the left right-hand side actually. You just click on the calculator and basically what it says is like enter the date of birth of the child and then the day you want to give it, which is probably the day that you're looking this up or maybe a few days before. And then if they're premature, and then if you click go, you click enter, and it'll automatically give you the correct questionnaire to use for both the ASQ3 questionnaire and then the SU questionnaire as well. So I'd recommend using the calculator if you're doing that. And I actually really just recommend you use the online version because again, it does all of that for you. You don't have to worry about printing out the correct questionnaire or making copies or anything like that. Okay. Okay, great. So we're going to move on to sort of a part about introducing the questionnaires to parents. And let me do a little time check here. Okay, we have about an hour more. So I'm not sure if we're going to get to this activity, but okay. As I mentioned, these are the choices that parents have. So you're going to want to make sure that you know parents, these are the choices that they can have. And then that, again, they can circle box if this is also a concern. So letting them know that there's additional option here if that particular question might be a concern for them. Okay, and there's other important points. So every single questionnaire has these important points to remember, right? So you can make sure you point out these important points to the parents as well. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and try this activity because I think it's important because it just gives you some practice to talk a little bit about some of the information we learned about just now. Okay, so we'll go ahead and break you out into pairs and we'll have you pull out the activity sheet. So let's see, that would be, so number 4 on the links there, and I think Leah can help us put the link in there for you. So let's pull out this activity, introducing the ASQSE-2 to caregivers activity. And we'll go ahead and break you out into pairs and let's have you talk with one another and introduce this. So one of you choose to be the parent and one of you choose to be the caregiver or the provider. And let's have you practice. So go ahead and take like maybe 2 minutes just to read the activity, both of you, and then go ahead and practice. Explaining what the ASQSE-2 is. Okay, so Leah is going to help us break out into the pair. Good. Great. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that was a useful activity for you. I think Nydia, you can get the activities on the link that we have shared with you. So I think Leah could help share that link again with you. So we'll just maybe give one opportunity if anybody wants to unmute and talk about the activity. If that was easy, was it hard? What was useful about it? Or if you want to put a comment in the chat, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Kimberly. I can comment.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I'm new to ASQ. So it was really helpful just to like read through it and practice it with my partner to kind of see it. I've watched it in a video and I'm learning it here with you, but it was helpful to like just go through it with another person, you know,
Okay.
kind of in order. It was really helpful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. Great. Wonderful. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. The activity sheet's nice because it just kind of takes you in steps. Then kind of puts you in a little bit of like a scenario, right? To kind of try to like practice what you just learned or what you just read, and then just practice what kind of words you might use when you're trying to talk with a parent about what it is. So thank you, Kimberly. Okay, great. So let's go keep moving forward because we have some other stuff we want to make sure we get to. So here we go. So I think I mentioned this earlier about scoring, right? Again, so it's like if you see an X next to the box, that's going to be worth 10 points. A V next to the box is worth 5 points. So that's the sometimes or the concern. And then you're going to put a 0 for the Z, or if it's in Spanish, it's going to be a C for 0. And then you add up all the points on each page, you transfer it to the back of the summary sheet, and then you look at it on the chart that they have, that graph with the arrow. And then that lets you know which of those zones that the child's score falls into. It's the no concern zone, the monitoring zone, or the concern area. Okay. We'll skip that a little bit here. So this is what we talked about, the cutoff. So you can see here, there's some percentiles here. So basically what they're saying is in the monitoring zone, 65% of children will be not in the monitoring zone. And the monitoring zone is 65 to 90%. So that's like a 25% zone of area that children potentially will be falling into the monitoring zone. And then if you're above the cutoff or in that what we call the concern zone, then essentially 90% of children will not be in that area and only about 10% fall in that area. So it's that small 10% of children in general that we're gonna potentially need to be concerned about or need to have some kind of follow-up and support, and potentially get an expert to let us know what might be happening with that child. Okay, so this is a scoring exercise that we would do if we were in person and you had the paper in front of you. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I think it's number 3 of the links that we sent you, that will be a blank one in case you want to go back later and practice scoring on your own. Otherwise, the 3.1 of the links is already scored for you. So, please go ahead and use that one later on. Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit about interpreting. So just kind of thinking a little bit. Sometimes there's parents that are they often just like to mark sometimes. They're like, yeah, sometimes my child's like that. Sometimes my child does that. Yeah, sometimes I've seen my child do this. Or yes, sometimes I feel like my child is like this. And so as you can see, that sometimes are worth 5 points. If a parent is what we call the sometimes parent, then those points up. So just kind of be aware of that. If you see a lot of sometimes, you just want to be wary of the score, because those scores really add up, and it could potentially have that child's score fall in the concern area when in fact there might not be really a lot of concerns in that area. Okay. Another really important thing about the social emotional tool to understand is that it was developed to be very subjective. So it is meant to be from the point of view of the person that is completing the tool. So it's important to know, and we know that children behave differently, as we talked about earlier, in different environments, and they behave differently with different people. So they behave differently with, they can behave differently with one parent versus the other parent. they definitely are likely to behave differently at home versus like in a school or in a structured type of program. So just remember that it is meant to be from the point of view of the person completing it. So in general, that's going to be the parent's point of view. Okay. And then just thinking a little bit more about sort of the validity of some of these things. Just remember that parenting is in general already very challenging, right? And that's even harder in general when you could be a very young parent, or if you're not supported. Parenting can be overwhelming. So some parents are overwhelmed, or again, they may be isolated. And a lot of parents maybe during this time of COVID-19 could be really isolated. So it's going to be even more challenging and tougher. And we just know that, with dealing with our own mental wellness issues, again, especially now with isolation, that could be even additional challenge that our parents are experiencing. Or if a parent themselves have experienced or they're currently experiencing some kind of trauma. So there's lots of different things to consider when we're starting to get into interpreting scores. And if we have some questions, because maybe we haven't observed, maybe the parent has completed this questionnaire and it's showing lots and lots of concerns, but let's say that we're a caregiver and we've spent a lot of time with this child as well, and we're not seeing the same kind of behavior concerns, then another option might be to see if there's another caregiver that's spending time with the child that might complete it. So sometimes in like a classroom situation or a childcare situation, a teacher or the childcare provider may complete it as well. And then when they get ready to talk with the parents about the results, you might use one questionnaire versus the other and use that as a conversation about the results in the child's behavior. Okay. So here are just sort of some general recommended follow-ups. So I talked about the no concern area or below the cutoff. So in general, you might just talk a little bit about if there were any concerns that the parents identified, just talk about those. And you could provide activities. And I think I mentioned to you in the links that we sent to you that there's a link there so that you can see examples of activities. And these learning activities, if you work with us, we can also provide you access to those learning activities as well. And then they're also available once we load it into your online system for you to use these activities. You can share them with families. So in the monitoring zone, again, we want to follow up with any kind of parent concerns that they might have identified. We might give them activities also. And then we might consider a referral. Maybe there is something that that the parent is concerned about or struggling with, and we want to provide them some support. So we might think about that. But it's not always that case in the monitoring zone. So again, and remember, these are just some general recommended follow-ups. And then if they're above the cutoff, so if they're in that dark zone, they're above that cutoff, we want to talk about some concerns. We definitely want to provide some activities to them. You may refer them back to their pediatrician. So maybe there is a hearing or a vision issue that we don't know about. That might be a good place to start. Or you might connect them to some of these local community agencies that provide some of these supports that are listed here. You might refer them to EI as early intervention, or you might connect them to our Help Me Grow. So HMG is our Help Me Grow. And so we'll talk, I'll definitely be sharing about what our Help Me Grow program offers and support we provide. In general, we are able to connect families to a lot of these services. So it's a way for you all to do these questionnaires with parents, identify if they have additional needs or their children may have additional needs, And then the idea is that you might hand them off to our Help Me Grow program to then provide the follow-up and support to get connected to these other services. If that's not part of what you already do in your programs. And okay, you can see the last bullet there. You may consider them for referral for some kind of a behavioral evaluation. Okay. So that was a lot there, but those are general recommendations. And I think as you will see in the next couple slides, it's not always just that clear cut. Just because it's in the dark zone doesn't necessarily mean we need to make a referral. There's other things and lots of other factors that we will need to consider. Okay. And then these are just, this is just a reminder about the activities that I was talking about. Okay, so we're going to sort of a little bit move into thinking a little bit more about how we're going to discuss results with parents. Okay, so before we move into that, we have a poll for you. So Leah's going to help us launch this poll. So the question to you is, what is your comfort level in talking with parents about concerns with their child? Okay, and the choices are there. Number 1, you're very uncomfortable. You run and hide when I need to speak with parents about concerns. I'm slightly uncomfortable. I don't like it, but I do it. You're neutral. It's fine. You're comfortable. It's part of my work and I have done it many times. Or you're very comfortable. I enjoy it and look forward to the challenge and partnerships with parents. Great. Okay. Well, it looks like the highest here, you can all see the results here, is most of you in general are comfortable. It's like, it's part of your work and you've done it sometimes, and it's sort of part of that necessary part of your job. The next highest, I think it was neutral. So you're just saying, yeah, it's fine. It's not like I'm super comfortable with this. And then there's a few that are slightly uncomfortable. And then there's looks like 3 of you, or 8%, are very comfortable. So that's great. So again, these are, if you just imagine, like if you're new to this and you're new to sharing results and talking about concerns with parents about their children, then just know that, it's just about practice. It's just about trying it and learning what works for you. When you practice, you find the right words that you feel like it's most appropriate to use. But I think probably all of you, since you're in the service field, know that it's really about our approach and our tone that we use when we talk to parents, and a lot about building trust with families that we work with. And that trust in that relationship is something that really it takes time. It's not, generally doesn't happen overnight. And so we need to know that, we need to be patient with ourselves, and we need to be patient with our families as we work through this part of sharing results and sharing concerns. And thank you, Maria, for posting. She says, I work together with my parents to develop good communication. Yeah, that's great. And that happens over time. Like that is just continuing to practice, trying our best to be really good communicators and developing that trust. And then over time, that trust builds and that relationship builds. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and close the poll and go to the next page. Okay, just some reminders now when you're reviewing questionnaires with the parents. So remember that there are to talk about strengths. So when if we're gonna share any concerns, we always want to make sure we have some positive things to share. So they're gonna be the strengths, are gonna be the items that are Z, that's 0. Remember the open-ended questions that we were talking about. And remember that the last question is, what do you enjoy most about your child? So starting with that is a great place to open up a conversation with parents about their children. Then you definitely want to make sure you're looking at those items that scored high. So items that had a 10 or even 15. The 15 ones are extremely important too, make sure you're discussed. So those are the ones where the parents have indicated through that extra option of this being a concern for them. And then look, of course, make sure you look at the sometimes ones, review the score, look at the cutoffs, and then consider what are your options for referrals if you need them. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you're going to share some concerns, then you want to make sure you come with some kind of resources or supports that could be available to them. Okay. So some more things that I think probably you all know about, but just reminders. So think about their culture or language issues. So you need to plan for that and understand, the way that you may need to work with them, especially within their culture. Of course, be timely and make sure that they know that the information you're going to be talking about is definitely confidential. And again, another reminder, just start by celebrating the child. So start with those strengths, okay? And then that practice of reviewing the purpose of screening. So you may want to just remember, like, this is just a quick look at your child's behavior and social emotional development, and then allows us a starting point to have this conversation about their behavior. And then, get familiar with the summary page. You can share with them the scores and where they fall on the chart, the no concern, the monitoring of the concern area. And then also be ready to have some follow-up actions and be very specific if you have some recommendations that you want the parents to follow. All right. And then when concerns arise, having the difficult conversation. So one really important part is, like, in general, many of you know your families pretty well. You know the parents pretty well if you work for them for a little bit. And so understand where they may be in this whole process, if there is some kind of concern and follow-up that we're going to be recommending. Some of your parents may be relieved to finally have something confirm that that there is indeed. Sometimes we hear too often, we hear parents sharing stories about talking to their pediatricians about their concerns with their children and not being really listened to enough. And a lot of times they will dismiss, the child is just young, oh, he'll just grow out of it, it's just a stage. But when parents have concerns, we really think that we need to perk up our ears and pay really close attention, because it's not easy, really, if you think about it, for parents to share concerns about their children. So parents may be relieved and they may be ready. Or, which is happens often, is that they may be upset by the results, or they may not agree, and they may not be ready to accept these results. So we need to just understand and know that where are our parents? Are they ready for this or they're not? And we have to have patience for them, okay? You probably all know this too, is like listen to them, read their subtle clues, and reflect back to them what you're hearing or feeling from their response or their reactions. And if you do have concerns, make sure you be very specific and try to, maybe you've had some observations. So try to note those observations and have them ready when you're talking to them about these results. And then remember, we did the factors activity at the beginning. So it's important for you to think about some of these factors. What do you know about this child and this family? What are their cultural expectations? What has the family been through? Are there any developmental issues that you should be considering in all of this? Have there been any health issues? So consider that and look at that. I do recommend for people that are newer to this questionnaire to review the factors sheet because it really does go more in depth into each of those areas, okay? And then you can see in that purple box at the bottom of this slide is, you don't need to convince your parents to accept a referral or follow through on a referral. What you need to do is let them know that you're there to support them. And then when they are ready for the next step, that you are there to help them make sure they get connected properly. And then sometimes you do this and then you're like, oh, let's rescreen. Let's try this again. Let's have you practice with your child some of these things where you're having struggles with. Let's give you some activities to do. And then let's do this again in 4 months or 6 months, and let's see where you are with your child's development. Because in 4 and 6 months with young children, they are growing up quite fast and learning a lot of new things, and things could change over time. All right, so that gives the parent some time to kind of like think about this a little bit more. All right, great. We are getting down. There's just some other recommendations, you know, some questions you may ask family members when you have concerns. Things like, do you have ideas or beliefs about why this behavior is happening? Tell us a little bit about what you've tried. How did it go? How did it work? What are some other ideas of things you might try to support your child? Do you have other people that can help you or support you? Or would you like some suggestions of ideas that have worked for other families? So that's sort of opening the door for you to provide your suggestions. But it's really kind of important because I think in our field, a lot of times we have wanted to give the answers or to sort of tell parents this is the way that you should do it, that's going to work or something like that. But I think over time we've learned that the better practice is really to try to work alongside parents and let them know that you're working side by side with them. You don't know any better than them, really. They're the expert on their child. So that is a nice, gentle way to say like, hey, are you open to other suggestions that may, that we know that have worked for other families or that other families have shared with us that have worked. So this is sort of a nice opening to like say, hey, okay, would you like some suggestions now? And thank you for that comment about the recommendations, that it comes off as very supportive. Okay. So just just additional reminders, and I can think you can see where we're getting with all these reminders, which is like, we want you to sort of interpret the results and take them very seriously, but we also want to interpret them with some caution. So again, making sure we take the full picture of what's happening with this child before sort of coming up with some recommendations or ideas to make referrals or connections for evaluations, and debrief the results with the families, and and try to determine together. Try to make it seem like a partnership, that together let's think what is the most appropriate follow-up for you and your child at this point.
I normally like to. Go ahead. Can I? Sorry.
Yeah.
I normally like to review together. I let them go first, and then when we don't agree, and it's not that I don't agree, that we don't have something the same. Then I say, how do you see this one? And in what situation she does this or he does this? And then we will go over that. But it's really important, in my perspective, point of view, that we do not, how to say it, because I'm not a doctor. And then it's really important that we do not, how do you say, what the doctors do, evaluate it, not evaluate it, but tell them that your child has this. It's really important that we don't do that. I normally, go over with them and then ask them questions, and then to see we understand and we're the same page. But it's also really important that I always says to them, ask the doctor that question. And do you think that she is a concern for you? If you think it's a concern for you, maybe talk to the doctor and see what we can do. Or I can suggest you to go to this place and have evaluation if you think. But I don't like to label a child. and say that your child has this, because I don't have the knowledge for that. But if there's a question that I'm concerned about it, we talk to them. And so we'll see what we can, come out with. Sorry, I went over.
No, that's okay. Thank you very much. That's very helpful, and it's nice to hear from a real person, a real provider in the field, and a real example of what you do with this.
Yeah, because I have a home daycare, and then for me, it's really important that they have an understanding what we're rating, and then also there's a concern that we go to a professional, because I'm not a professional, and I want them to get the information. And then if there's more concerns we need to address, then I ask them to go to the doctor, and from there, we can work together. But it's really important that I don't scare them and I say something, I see this, and then I think this is going on. No, it's we talk about it.
Yeah, great. Thank you for saying that. And I think a few people chatted that one of the words I think you were looking for was diagnosing them. So we're not the experts who can diagnose children with a specific issue or a delay, but the purpose of this is to look and see if there may be something that we are concerned with, and then helping them get connected to the appropriate supports. And so thank you for sharing that. Maria, right?
Yes, that was Maria.
That was Maria. Okay, great.
Yes,
wonderful. Thanks
Maria
for sharing,
Gomez.
Maria.
And there's some good comments in the chat as well, to remember that we're not diagnosing. This isn't a diagnostic tool, it's a screening tool, and that we do have a scope of our practice, and the professionals are the ones that can do some of that, and the parent is the expert in their child.
Yeah. And I love how you told us, Maria, about how you go over and you go over the results together with the parents, and you talk about the results together. And so you make it like a conversation, and you make it like a partnership. You make it feel like you're having a partnership with the families. And that's a wonderful approach. Anybody else have comments that they want to share?
You can unmute if you want.
Okay, well, we're going to give you an opportunity to talk with one another a little bit more about this next. So we do have an activity for you. It is one of the links that we sent to you, and that is it's the Lewis Family Study. So it's number 7 of the links. So if you want to go ahead and click on that. I think Leah will help us put the link into the chat for the document, or Beth could do that. So go ahead and pull that up. We're actually going to break you out into groups of 3 or 4 for this activity. So why don't you spend about 2 or 3 minutes reading, just read a little bit about Lewis's family and background. And then there are some questions in the activity that will guide you through your discussions. So go ahead and just kind of move through each of the questions together, so that you can, talk about Lewis and his family and think a little bit deeper. It gives you a little bit more perspective of like looking at the results. Oh, you're also gonna want document 3.1, which is the completed ASQSE Lewis 6-month. It's filled out and scored, so you can also pull that up and look at that as well. So take a good 3-4 minutes at the beginning to read a little bit about Lewis's family, the background, and look at the results of his completed ASQSE, and then go through the questions. So we'll give you between 12 and 15 minutes for this activity and breakouts. Okay, so we'll go ahead and have you break out now. Okay. All right, great. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that was also another useful activity. And we are, want to do a time check. We are running out of time. We have 5 more minutes. We'll likely go over about 5 minutes. So, completely understand if people need to leave. And thank you for being with us. But did want to just give one opportunity for some volunteers, maybe to share the experience of that activity. If anybody wants to unmute and share a little bit before I move on to the next part, which is going to be sharing about our Help Me Grow program. So is there any volunteer that wants to share?
One of the things that I need to.
Okay. Yep.
Since
go ahead, please.
If anybody wants to share?
Yeah, sure, please.
Oh, Maria.
Okay. One of the things that we need to focus in is that how the child is raising at home, with the culture, with any health issues, with the environment. All those things are so important to take in consideration when we're doing the assessment, because all that has a really key points for us to understand how the child is developing. Like I was planning in my group, like it can be a set of twins. And then it can be for the same background, everything is going on, but still they're not developed at the same space, because everybody has different personalities and different way that they're growing. But at the same time, we want them to, all of them, to hit the key points that we want them to have a healthy development.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Maria. Okay. So again, hopefully that activity of just kind of talking with one another a little bit about a family or case study was useful in helping you see a little bit more how you might use this tool or this questionnaire with the families that you work with. So now I'm going to go ahead and move us along into the part about our Help Me Grow program. So Help Me Grow is a program that we started here in Alameda County about 10 years ago at Verse 5. It is sort of a model of a program that was created by a pediatrician about 25 years ago in Connecticut. And the reason he developed this idea of Help Me Grow was that he was finding that when he was trying to connect his families to these additional support services or early intervention support services for children and families, he didn't always know where to go. He didn't know, where should I send them? Where should they start? Depending on what age, is there a different organization they should go to? And what are the services available for families? So he developed this idea of Help Me Grow, which the main point of this is to say that there's one place that families can go to get information about child development, get some answers, and then get help or support to get connected to the early intervention system or support programs. So anyways, this is our Help Me Grow in Alameda County. And let me go through this part really fast, and then we'll come back to finish with the video that we have. So one of the main points is, I think I was talking about, which is that you may do these questionnaires with your families and then find that they indeed would like some referrals or would like some support or connection to services. So, but knowing exactly where they should go is a very challenging thing. There's so much available out there. Where should they start? Sometimes it's with their pediatrician, but sometimes it's somewhere else. So where do I start? So that's why I wanted to share that we have our Help Me Grow program. And one of the main services is our phone line. And so our phone line is there to provide a place. So this is this idea of the single place to ask questions about child development, get answers, and then get support in linking to services. So we have 4 wonderful staff that answer the phone line, and they speak English, and then they speak Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin. And we also use an interpretation line to speak with families in other languages if needed. So we hope that language is not a barrier to connecting to our services. There is the referral form. That's one of the links in the and one of the documents in the links that we sent out. So you can use that referral form to connect families to the phone line. And Beth has also just put the phone number up right now as well. So you can always call directly. Families can call directly. Right now, they are answering the lines. Very often it's people will need to leave a message, and then they will get your message and they'll call you back within 2 days, and it's usually sooner than that. So that's the phone line and getting support. The people are child development experts, so that's their background. They can answer any questions. And of course, depending on the issue or concern or challenge that families are having, then they will help families connect to those additional services. So maybe it is that a child needs some counseling or mental health consultation. So they will help connect families to that. And it's not just here's the names and numbers, but here's the names and numbers, here's what to expect, here are some documents you might get prepared. And then I'm going to check back with you in a week or two. So the philosophy really is to make sure that families are connected to the services that they are needing. And so they follow up over and over again until they actually find that the family has been connected to the supports that they need. So I actually hear that they follow up with families for 8 to 10 or 12 times before the families are connected. So that's the phone line. We encourage you to utilize that. We also want folks to know that, you know, families can call or people can call this line for any broad general reason for child development. So we encourage you to utilize this. And we hope it will be a useful resource and connection to using the questionnaires with your families. Then just really quickly, we also provide the questionnaires to families, so families can sign up for it and we can send it to them and it can do all that. But I would love it, if you all want to do the questionnaires directly. So if you want support, I'd love to follow up with you after today to see if we can provide additional support for you to do that. And then we also have a website that has information there in a resource directory. So that's the alamedakids.org. And lastly, just want to show you quickly our video for any of those that are able to continue hanging on with us this morning. Okay. Oh, I think I need to stop sharing and share with the video or the sound. Oh, yes, I do have the sound. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Being a first-time parent, you don't want to make any mistakes. You want to get every single thing right. You want to know how to do it, and it's not easy.
When you're first introduced about your child struggling through his development, as a parent, you feel a little helpless.
Because we don't know where to go, who to ask.
I had this special case in my childcare. I could not understand his behavior.
One of the challenges that we hear from parents is that when they may have a concern about their child, they don't know where to turn. So with Help Me Grow, we provide parents all of the information about the choices that they have available to them and help them make the best decision for their family about what they need to support their child and their family.
Help Me Grow was very easy to reach out to. I just had to call them.
El doctor nos comunicó con el Help Me Grow, nos dio mucha información. Fue una gran ayuda.
Cuando nos dieron el número de Help Me Grow, le hablamos y ellos fueron muy humanitarias, nos ayudó demasiado.
Our Help Me Grow phone line is free. It's available in Cantonese, Mandarin, Spanish, and English. And we have access to language support for all of the other languages in the county. Families call the Help Me Grow phone line for a multitude of reasons. Communication concerns, behavior concerns. We help families connect to entitlement systems, the regional center, the school districts, community-based play groups, parent cafes.
We know that sometimes it's sort of a journey for parents to get to a point where they're ready to act on concerns or act on things that are happening with their children that they want support with. So it's really trying to be a partner alongside of them and trying to get them connected to those services they feel like they're ready for.
The first time I contacted Help Me Grow, I was really nervous because I couldn't know from where to start. They explained to me that it's not me alone being through this, it's thousands of kids being in this situation. And looking for helping your kid and helping yourself a sign of a good parent. And that's the first word that makes me feel relief and make me feel like I am really a good parent.
Talking with Help Me Grow, I didn't feel judged. They shared personal stories with me, which helped me feel comfortable, and how to go about situations in my son's life.
Help Me Grow really helped me to understand what's going on, and they helped me to connect to the parents, to the services the child needed.
Help Me Grow give us more than what we expect from them.
Este programa de Ayúdame a Crecer nos ha ayudado muchísimo y nos está ayudando con nuestra hija.
I think this is a great resource for families who are struggling possibly with the development of their child or even having questions. So just to have a centralized area with kind professional resources is very helpful.
You know, I've been doing pretty good. The stuff that they have been telling me, it actually has been working. Slowly but surely, I do see.
It's made me feel more confident in the decisions I was making, more confident in the investments I was making into my child's development. Help Me Grow made me feel like I wasn't alone and I was part of a larger community.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully that gave you all just a sense about what our Help Me Grow program offers and is like for families to use the services. So again, sorry that we went a little bit over in time. Thank you to all that have hung in there with us. And thank you for being with us today in this training. Hopefully it's will be a useful tool for you in the future in working with your families. And then as a reminder, I know that Beth would want to remind everybody to please complete the evaluation when you can. It's always very useful information for myself to make sure that we can continue to improve on the training in the future. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Vince, so much. We value and appreciate your expertise and just appreciate, I know you're so busy and we just really are grateful that you're able to make some time to provide these trainings. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming.